Hello, I'm Andrew Dyer, and welcome to another edition of the Roundball Report, the only show in the area dedicated to highlighting the extras of the high school, college, and professional basketball teams which play in the Washington metropolitan area. And unfortunately, neither of my co-hosts, Janae Hayes, Nikki Lewis, nor Kelsey Nelson, can be here this week, but the ladies will return as soon as the schedule permits. I want to get things started this week. We're going to take a look at the WNBA season, where the Washington Mystics got off to a rough start, losing their first 3 contests of the season, all at home, and then rebounded with an overtime victory at Connecticut over the weekend. And here with us to weigh in with their thoughts are the one and only Coach Jimmy Fly Hellman, who's here with us on a regular basis, and we want to introduce to you the latest edition of the Roundball Report, Miss Jianni Smith. Jianni, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, Jianni, you had a chance to go down to the Mystics game on Friday. It was not a pretty affair, but what was the experience like for you?
It was a really good experience, actually. It was my first time being able to be in like the media box and down on the floor. I had been to many Mystics games as a child and coming up playing basketball, but that experience was really different for me. So it was really fun, even though they fell short, but it was a really good experience.
So they got off to an 0-3 start. Jimmy talked about it last week that they got to take care of things at home, but they're without Ivory Latta and Natasha Cloud, their 2 point guards, and are having to go with Bria Hartley. And I understand Bria had some challenges against Christy Tolliver and the Los Angeles Sparks the other day. Right.
I think pretty much you can see that they're without their point guards because a lot of their points that the opposing teams are getting are mostly off of turnovers. They said, well, Tiara Ruffin-Pratt talked about how she had to play some of the point guard position even after coming off of an injury, and that was different for her. So a lot of it's just going to be adjusting to the different positions, and turnovers are going to come from that. So the team as a whole is going to have to adjust from that to be able to succeed.
And then Jimmy, Coach Tebow, they've gotten off to sluggish starts before with health issues and with players getting the rust off and transitioning back from coming overseas. Do you think the Mystics fans should not be too alarmed with the early sluggish start?
No, but you do have to take into consideration now with the new playoff format. You can have 8 teams, but you could have all 6 teams coming from the West depending on records because they're just taking the top 8 teams. So you have to consider that and factor that in. I think until you get your point guards healthy, though, he's got to adjust his offense, which I'm sure he's doing. More player movement, more ball movement. You probably won't have as much dribble penetration as you would have if you have your natural point guards, running the show. Even in the win against Connecticut on Saturday, they had 20 turnovers. When you commit those live ball turnovers out in the open floor, that sets a stage for the other team to run on you and get easy layups.
Well, we had an opportunity for Rachel and Jianni to be at the Mystics game against the LA Sparks, and they had a chance to file this report, so check it out.
Here at the Verizon Center, the Washington Mystics will conclude their home game stretch against the Los Angeles Sparks, who are coming off of a 30-point win in their home opener. Now the Mystics have gotten off to a rough start, losing 2 games at home, but they look to bounce back and gain some momentum heading on to the road. Jianni, what are some of the keys for this game?
One of the keys definitely is going to be for the Mystics to use all of their players in their rotation. Fresh legs is going to be really important because the Sparks are coming off of just playing 1 game in their season opener, and the Mystics have already played 2 games, so we need to make sure that we're using all of our players in the rotation and keeping everyone fresh and healthy.
Exactly. Post-presence defense is going to be key too, because with Candace Parker and Nneka Ogwumike down low, they are lethal. We'll see. Stay tuned.
We're a really bad basketball team right now, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. I don't know what's going to change it. I'm hoping a couple players will help, but that doesn't excuse some of the things we're doing right now. 22 turnovers is just absolutely unacceptable, and we probably had more assists on their baskets than they did, it seemed. I thought Elena Beard was exceptional for them, even though she wasn't their leading scorer. I thought that she caused incredible problems for us because of her defensive effort. She was a one-person press. She was disruptive. I thought she got their energy up for them. I thought, early on we did a good job on Parker and Ogwumike, but Beard and Tolliver ignited them, and I thought a lot of it had to do with Beard's defense.
Okay, so first, Elena, congratulations on your win today. But I know it had to be exciting coming back playing on your old stomping grounds. But how did you keep your team motivated and coming in just from your second game of the opening season?
It's always good to be back in D.C., just seeing familiar faces. Obviously, this is where I started my career, and I was here for a very long time. But it's not hard keeping the team motivated when you have the players that we have. I think everyone has a role to do, and as long as everyone come out and do their role, everything else works.
And heading into the next game, what is your mindset to just get this first win?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to let this one go and focus on the next game, the next defense that we have to play, and just make sure that we get things, together. We execute offensively, play good defense, and just redeem ourselves and get that win that we want.
The Washington Mystics came up short against the Los Angeles Sparks, losing by 30 points. They struggled defensively, giving up 20 fast break points, and they had 22 turnovers. Now they head on a 3-game road trip. We'll see if they can get their first win of the season. I'm Rachel McNair alongside Jianni Smith for the Roundball Report. Back to you in the studio.
Great job, ladies. And as Coach Thibault said, he was not too pleased with his team, saying they were a bad basketball team. But WNBA season comes fast and furious, and they were able to be victorious the next night in Connecticut. And Jianni, as you said, it was a rough experience, but it was kind of a benefit to them to have to get a chance to come back and play another game 24 hours later.
Right. I think that it definitely gave them a chance to reflect on the mistakes that they made. A lot of them know, like as I said, TRP, she knew that she was going to have to make adjustments because she's coming in playing a different position than what she's used to. So I think that it's all going to be a learning experience for them. And once they grow and build that chemistry, then I think they'll do fine.
And Jimmy, as you were saying, the challenge this year is in the past, as long as you were one of the top 4 teams in your conference, you got in the playoffs, so you could get away with a sluggish start. But now with them taking the best 8 records throughout the league, they're going to have to get this turned around quickly if they hope to be a playoff team this year.
Well, you got to get giddy up quickly because they have a road game at Phoenix this week, Seattle first, then Phoenix. So and they got some gap in between there, so they got some practice time, some time to get some bumps and bruises. People might not be healthy, but Seattle and Phoenix are both off to slow starts. They're at the bottom of the Western Conference. Phoenix hasn't won a game yet, although Taurasi, she leads the league in scoring at 24 points a game, so they'll have their work cut out. And of course, Brittany Griner will be waiting in the middle.
Right. And what did they talk about the outlook of when they're going to get in this? I know it's still going to be a few weeks for Ivory Lotter, but what about Natasha Cloud? Is she expected anytime soon? Expected to make the West Coast trip?
They didn't exactly say. I know they mentioned that TRP wasn't supposed to be back for another 2 weeks, and then she came back earlier than expected. So
desperate times call for desperate measures, huh?
Yeah. So and she came back and she had a good showing. She showed a lot of good effort. So we'll just have to see.
Right, and throughout the league, as you mentioned, the Western Conference has been dominant. But the Mystics, that was the first game that they weren't competitive. I mean, the first 2 games they lost at home, basically because when it comes down to the stretch, the last couple of minutes, that's where not having a true point guard shows up. And what were 2 or 3 point games ended up being double-digit losses. But this one, it seems like they were out of most of the contests. Yeah,
and you got to find other ways to win. Last year, Dolson and Mieseman, were really big in the paint. They haven't really produced the kind of numbers they did last year. And of course, obviously, you need point guard help to feed the post. But they run a lot of sets where it's big-to-big post entry passes, and then you just got to get on the glass. But the turnovers, like he said, they have more assists off turnovers for the other team. You can't allow teams to get easy buckets at professional level because turnovers, missed layups, and the NBA missed dunks turn into points down the other end, and then you're digging yourself a hole.
Now, Jianni, what's the outlook for Bria Hartley? I mean, I look on the tapes that she doesn't look like she's 100% healthy.
I'm not even really sure.
But they had very high hopes for her when she came out of Connecticut a couple of years ago. Was supposed to be the point guard of the future, and had a great rookie year. Had some injuries last year, and you would think that she would be able to be that point guard they could depend on with Cloud and Lotta out. But apparently, through the first 3 games, that hasn't been the case.
It may just have been, other than the fact that she was playing behind them, she may just be trying to go through some learning experiences, probably. I know it's probably going to be a developmental year for her because Lotta was one of their main point guards and she's out, so she's basically having to take on the leader team role for the team. So.
And Jimmy, you know from your time going down there, Coach Tebow has never wanted to sugarcoat things, and he was none too pleased after that thrashing they took to the Sparks, losing the first 3 games at home.
When you're a backup, okay, and you're playing behind, players that are better than you, the door of opportunity opens. You have to be prepared and ready to step in and walk through that door. If you don't, Miss Hartley could be shown the door or traded. Or, there's a lot of things that happen in professional sports, but you got to step up to the plate and produce, because when these players get back, then you're going to find yourself, deep on the bench, and your minutes might be non-existent.
Right, right. Well, that's going to be our WNBA report for the week, and Jianni, you and Rachel are going to be giving us a lot of coverage throughout the year. But now we're going to turn the page to NBA hoops, where Jimmy, before we get into the playoffs, we can talk about the lottery and the Wizards' first round pick is going to be Markieff Morris, because they did not move up in the lottery. Their pick was 13, so it's forfeited to Phoenix as part of that trade, and they already had given up their second round pick, so they're not going to get any help from the draft. It's going to be strictly free agency to help bolster this roster.
Well, Markieff Morris is probably better than anybody in this draft, because as far as somebody coming out, the top 2 picks potentially that everybody's talking about is Simmons and the kid from Duke, Ingram. But neither one of them are going to step onto the floor and give you what Markieff Morris, he's a 3 or 4 year veteran now at the professional level. He has a man's body. Both of them are going to have to grow into their role. This is almost like the draft when the Wizards picked up Otto Porter with the 3rd pick. It's not a deep draft. There's not a lot of top-heavy talent in it. So, the move to get Markieff Morris, in my opinion, Ernie made a good move with that deal. Should have probably been done earlier in the season, but sometimes you can't make those moves until people are at the end of the road and what they're seeing they're going to get for it.
Well, we're going to make a move right now to a commercial break, and we'll come back on the other side. We're going to continue our discussion of NBA and focus on the ongoing NBA playoffs with Coach Jimmy Fly Hellman and Jianni Smith. So stay with us.